Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 42 of Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmer, and I have only come here seeking knowledge, wrestling things they did not teach me of in college. And joining us now is the star of our show, Bobby Blaze.
Damn, Sting, don't stand so close to me up there.
Right.
I'm telling you, man, how are you? Well, we missed your friend the Scorpion this week, so welcome back, Jeremy.
Yeah, I did listen to the episode. Scorpion seemed to have done quite a good job there. I was pretty happy with his performance.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Yes.
So
we need some we're going to drop some dollars today, we hope, man.
That's what we're shooting for. Today we're talking about cage matches, baby. That's going to be the topic of the show. But before we get started on that, I just wanted to say, thank you to Scorpion. And I think, Bobby, he might have the second best voice on the internet. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you. Yeah. He's got a pretty damn good voice, man.
That's what I was
He's done a hell of a good job on some recalls. He got me to pop on a couple recalls, I'll say that. So, good memory on that cat.
Yeah, exactly.
What else is new? Anything?
I had my second grandchild was born last weekend.
Congratulations, man. That's some good news.
Yeah, that was the first piece of good news I've had in a long time. It almost happened while my son and I were at the movies watching the most recent Avengers movie.
Okay.
And, maybe I'm embellishing the story when I tell it a little bit, but Micah jumped up and ran out of the room at about 40 minutes left to go in the movie. Comes back, he sits down, I go, is everything okay? He goes, yeah, everything's fine. About 30 minutes go by, and he elbows me and he goes, hey, she's in the hospital in labor. I'm like, well, let's go. He goes, oh, there's only 10 minutes left. Now, if that actually happened or not, I couldn't tell you. That's the way I remember it happening. Yeah.
I hear you. Well, never let the truth stand in the way of a good yarn,
I never do. Yeah.
So you named her baby Captain America, Thor, what?
Well, they went with Miko, which I don't get, but okay, I didn't. I'm not the one who was in labor. So,
There you go.
Yeah. Because I would have gone with Steve Rogers probably.
Okay. All right. Well, good for you, man. It's good on you.
Yeah.
I don't have any big news or anything, nothing like that, but that's hard to top anyway, so I wouldn't even try to. Having a new grandbaby in the family, that's awesome, man.
No,
it's awesome.
It even got me and my ex to go have a drink together in celebration, and we didn't stare daggers or shit on each other the whole time.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah. It put me in such a good mood. I'm thinking about buying my ex, my daughter-in-law, and my mom flowers when I leave the house.
Okay.
It is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all you mothers and bad mothers and motherfuckers out there.
Yeah, I go in the motherfucker category myself, so
exactly.
No mothers around here. Oh, yeah. That's.
Well, Bobby, since we've already said, Happy Mother's Day, why don't we go ahead and give shout-outs to whoever we feel is appropriate this week? And then we'll get on to cage matches.
You got any? You have any at all?
I do not. I am I am unprepared, but I know, in pre-production you said you had a couple, so I thought I'd tee up for that.
I appreciate that. That's because next Sunday, May the 19th, in Ironton, Ohio, at the Rona Theater, FTC is having an event, and it's going to be a pretty good event. So many of the guys are going to be over there that I know that I've helped. So I want to give them a quick plug. Sunday at 4 o'clock, the Rona Theater, downtown Ironton. Misery's going to be in action. My man Casey King is going to be taking on one of my other guys. Man, I really like this guy a lot. It's going to be hard to talk bad about him, but I'm going to probably end up doing it anyway. Jock Sampson, man, he's a tough customer. That should be a hell of a good match. Misery's fighting. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a street fight. He's fighting Big Mike Sark. That's going to be pretty good. Shane Storm will be there for many others. So I will be making a special appearance, just kind of sitting around, hanging out, talking to the boys, and then all the wrestling fans, of course, that come over there. We're expecting a really good show. It is a fundraiser for a local girl, a little girl here that sustained some injuries. I don't know all the details. I'm just going to kind of leave it at that because it gets too personal for me as far as when a child's injured in an accident, and that's pretty much what it is. So it's going for a good cause, and we hope to make a good donation for that cause. The other big shout out I want to give is to Chase Armstrong. Man, I'm going to give him a plug. Chase got on Raw last Monday night, man. And I trained Chase. I've known Chase as a young boy. And I told him since the 7th grade that when he turned 18, I'd train him. And I did. And he's a real good young man. And he used to work out with my son Brady when he was on a wrestling team together. And Chase has just got a lot of potential. And he went down and done the Raw as an extra. He got to come out with No Way Jose and do a little thing out there with Lars Sullivan, I think, tossed him around a little bit and this and that. And good on you, Chase. Keep it up, man. I hope you continue your travels or good luck in your future endeavors, as they say, is all I can tell you. But I like to see these guys doing good, man, and getting in it as an extra nowadays. You know, like we've said before, this is not a dig towards anyone, but they're a damn TV company, not a wrestling company, and you got to start somewhere. So get out there and get exposed, guys. You know, get on TV and get your name out there, and you never know, man, because everyone starts somewhere. So with that said, that's just my shout outs, man. Again, just May 19th, a plug for FTC, because those guys are real good to me, and then one to Chase, and that's that. And, you know, other than that, man, let's have a great show about these cage matches.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, I was just thinking when you were talking about the FTC guys, when we first started the show, I actually would on Twitter talk to Shane Storm and Casey King quite a bit, and I was just thinking as you were talking, it's like I haven't really chatted with them at all in the last several months. So maybe guys, if you get a free moment, shoot me a note, and let's see if you guys maybe have some ideas for show topics or something. Might be fun.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Okay, with that being said, Bobby, let's go ahead and talk about steel cage matches. Should we set the table a little bit, I wonder, going into this?
Yes.
Let's talk about, so what, as a wrestler, when is the appropriate time for a steel cage match?
Well, after you build it up, you have to have, let's go logically. You got a good guy and a bad guy. You got your heel and your baby face. Okay. That much has been exposed, but you just can't come in and say, Scorpion, I challenge you to a cage match. You know, that's just not, we're going to have a cage match for the fuck's sakes of having a cage match. So what happens, I think, you know, is you get a good steam going where, you know, the baby face and the heel, they're having these matches and, you know, the heel just keeps, you know, getting over, screwing them with the last minute finishes, you know, this and that. And you build up some heat, Jeremy, whether it's 9 months or 12 months or 18 months, you build that up and you let it stew. And you do a couple little stipulation matches here and there to finally, you know, I think that baby face, you know, he wants to get his hands on that heel so bad. And that heel has done everything to screw him, you know, from anything from and I'm going to let you preface this whole episode with your thoughts on the whole deal about the cage. But we want to build that up over about, you know, X amount of time, 6, 9, 18 months, like we said. And then that way we're going to challenge you to the cage match. Scorpion, now we've got a reason to have this cage match. You have eluded me, and there's no way you're going to get away from me. There's no way anyone else is going to interfere. This is the last friggin' resort. We're going to have inside of a steel cage, and we're going to talk about some different cages in a minute too. But that's what you do. You build it up, and then once that cage match starts, that's the, you know, you're going for that climatic of that, you know, period of time where that baby face can finally get his hands on that heel inside the cage. So with that said, as we spoke a little bit off the air there, why don't you tell me why that heel, really, he may or may not want to be in that cage, but let's go to more stipulations on the cage match itself if you don't care. Do you want to see someone get out of that cage or get in that cage or just them two battling? Tell me what your thoughts are.
I want to see two guys locked in a cage. Okay, so I'll kind of prep. For me, a cage match is about isolating the two wrestlers,
yes,
who have had a lot of heat. My assumption in any situation like this is that the heel is part of a faction or he's got a group of friends. And, you know, you already talked about how they're kind of chicken shit the face a little bit here, you know, the baby face in the story, the hero. So my thought is usually that he's getting ganged up on and nobody's really coming to his aid. And obviously if he had a faction of his own, they could do a 8-man tag and settle it that way. But you go to the cage, to isolate those two so the good guy can get his hands on that chicken shit villain. He can't run away. Nobody else can get in. Also, as you brought up, this story could have been building for 9 to 18 months. And back in the day, when wrestling was still wrestling, that meant you had guys out in the crowd with their fucking pocket knives ready to go get that heel.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
So you needed to keep the crowd out, but you also needed, for story purposes, you need to keep other wrestlers out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we was talking about beforehand. I knew you worded that very good. So basically we've got these two guys. They built up the angle. We've built it up. And we don't want any other wrestlers getting in the cage. We don't want the fans getting in the cage, especially with pocket knives and razors or what have you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, once we're in the cage, the way to win the match, which we'll go into all these different finishes stuff, but what's the one way, Jeremy, to not win a fucking cage match? Would you tell me that, please?
Oh, yeah. My feelings on how to not win a cage match is running the fuck away. You do not win a cage match by getting out of the goddamn cage and running to the back. That is not a good stipulation to win on.
No.
Build up this story and this fight for 18 months, and then the first guy to run away wins? No, fuck that. Yeah. That's not right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you want to. You may ideally, when you're getting your ass beat, you may want. I don't know if it's ideally to get your ass beat, but you may want to be getting out of there when you're getting your ass beat. But that's not how you're going to win the match.
No.
Is climbing over that.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, I'm going to jump. Just one thing I want to. We didn't talk about this, and we didn't talk about a lot of things. Actually, we're just going to. I don't even know if this is going to be a top 10. We're just going to talk about a bunch of different cage matches. But the one thing I just want to kind of put out there too. I don't think we're going to be talking about any, and I just kind of want to put this out there now, and if it comes up, it does. I wasn't a fan of the big blue cages that look like you could crawl through the fucking bars. Mm-hmm. To me, that wasn't a cage. Even though it's, I guess, a cage, I just wasn't a fan of the big blue with the, squared bars and this and that. With that said, and I know we could talk about every kind of cage coming and going. One of my favorites, though, is the one where when you said keep the fans out of the ring and keep the wrestlers out of the ring, was the one they used in Memphis. It was outside the ring, not up on the ring, mm-hmm. and had a top on it. So that to me like a real cage. I want to see a cage match. I want them guys to be inside of a cage. Yes. So there's all kinds of different cages out there. And, of course, now we've got, talk about all the different ones to the Hells and the Cells and some of the ones that will come up through this podcast. But I just wanted to let you know I just didn't like the ones that looked like they was escapable, if you will. You know what I'm saying? I like the ones that have the barbed wire on the top of them when they're up against the ring. I like the one that set outside the ring where there was a gap there, but still you had to climb, 20 feet, above the ring and things like that. And also, I don't even know if we're going to bring it up. One of these, we've talked about some of these matches, a couple of we are going to talk about, we've talked about before, but where them fans hit the cage at the finish, running there and trying to climb on, so, we just, I don't know. I just don't think that blue one to me just kind of, I don't think we have anything from that era on this list, that we're going to be talking about, but I just wasn't a fan of that cage. Anything else pretty much I was a fan of, though, if it involved the cage, because I think you said earlier, with that investment with the 6, 12, 18-month period, we've bought tickets for that long. We've tuned in every fucking week on a Saturday or whatever day we're watching it, and you're watching it and you're following it and you want to see this. And you and I, we always cheer for the heels and this and that, but, you want to see that baby face kick his ass finally or whatever you bought the ticket for. The last thing you want to do is see a guy run in there and then try to get out to win the fucking match, or also look at a cage and say, well, that looks like you just fucking climb right out of it, or a fan can climb right in it. The whole idea is to keep the fucking other people out and keep the wrestlers in.
Exactly.
So we've established that.
Yeah, I always like the, what do they call that, cyclone fencing? I like the cage with cyclone fencing on it. Because, the big blue steel cage, it looks like it'd hurt if you get whipped into it.
Sure.
But that open mesh fencing, you grab somebody by their hair, jam their face up against it, and then rake that shit back and forth.
Right.
I love that cheese grater move,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, I talked about some matches the different kind of matches. And I kicked out on 2, the educational wrestler, and a cage match to me is probably my favorite matches to watch. I've only been in a couple. I've been in barbed wire fence matches and this and that, and I'm not going to go to that, but I'm just trying to give us a little segue. Let's talk about Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel, and also the educational wrestler. I kicked out on my 2 books, because that's kind of the way we sponsor this podcast, if you will. We appreciate your patronage, if you will. And tell them where they can get the books at, Jeremy.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can get Pin Me, Pay Me by going to tinyurl.com/blazebook1. And you can get I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler, by going to tinyurl.com/blazebook2. That'll take you right to Amazon. It's our affiliate link. Bobby sells a book. The show makes a little bit of money. You get a good story out of it. And we thank you and all that.
Yep, okay.
So, yeah, if you have not done so, go buy one now. If you have already bought them, go buy a couple copies for your friends. They'll appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll appreciate it too. So let's get into, again, folks, for you regular listeners, we're probably not going to categorize which match was number 10 and which one's number 1. We're just going to talk about some cage matches. With that said, Jeremy, I want to give a quick plug too. I'm sure you'll get one later on though. Tex, our graphic design man, and it also has a YouTube channel we'll post here in a minute, or a pitch here in a minute. But anyway, I want to give Tex some credit for sending out some really good notes. We did use some of them for this week's show, because he had a really good list of his top 10 favorite matches, but we're going to take some different ones and talk about these matches. Where do you want to start at? Because I know one match I want to start with, just to bring it up to kind of prep this, and then I'm going to drop another one in later on. But where do you want to start at? Anything special?
You know what I'm going to start with is I'm just going to go with one of my favorites, just right off the top. And, you know, you were asking, like, what should the stipulations be in a cage match? And I say pinfall or submission, unless you can do an I Quit match.
There you go.
And I want to say, you know, I've got one of my favorites of all time. I think it was from Starrcade 85. Tully Blanchard, of course.
Yes.
Versus Magnum TA in an I Quit match in a cage. And this thing just goes to bloody goddamn mess pretty quickly. It's vicious. It's nasty. They brawl more than they wrestle. A broken chair gets used to gouge Tully's face. Yeah. It is a nasty, nasty match, and I love every minute of it.
Good. I had to go back and watch it. I finally did, because I know we've mentioned it before. And it's a hell of a good match. And I know I had seen it. It's just been so long ago, you know, since I had seen it when we first discussed it before. Mm-hmm. And I knew that would probably be the one you would go to. You could probably figure I'm going to go to one of 2 places for mine. I've got several. These are just my favorites, and I've talked to people. The one I'm going to mention, I kind of mentioned earlier about the Memphis ring. I'm going to go to Memphis in '87 with Lawler versus Idol, and it was a hair versus hair match, and Tommy Rich hit underneath the ring. And I was talking to my brother about this on Friday, and that's just, I don't know, the whole match is out there. It's on YouTube, but Tex had sent it along with his notes. But I just kind of was like talking to my brother without going over the notes, just going from memory before I read anyone else's notes. And fuck's sake, I didn't go online and try to look up, because if you do, it all comes up to fucking WWE top 10 cage matches. And so I held our last episode on a Masked Men. I hold that list. That was a strong ass list on our Masked Men on the last episode. And I'm going to say this episode, if you go and look up any of these cage matches, I guarantee it, these cage matches stand the test of time. And that match there was, you know, Tommy Rich under the ring with, you know, it's probably a 6-pack, 12-pack case of beer. Who the fuck knows how much beer he had underneath of there. But man, you know, it come to a hair versus hair match, and in a cage. They built it up, you know, 12, 15,000 fans. And guess what? The wrestlers aren't getting in because it's that big ass cage that you have to climb over to have the top one. The fans aren't getting in, but lo and behold, the heels, screw job finish, man. Tommy Rich underneath the cage comes out, boom, boom, boom. Lawler gets his head shaved. First time he ever lost a, you know, hair versus hair match. Maybe the first time he ever lost a cage match. I don't even know, man. But also it's one of those things where, Jeremy, it's a steel cage, you know, and you're like, these guys built it up, you know, so good, man.
Yeah.
And that's just one of my favorites. So all these are good ones, I think. So we've got Magnum and Tully in there, and Tully getting his eye gouged. We've got Lawler and Austin there if Tommy Rich interfering. What do you like next? Just throw one out at me because we're not doing any special order. Or add what you want to it. You know what?
Yeah, let me address that real quick.
Yeah, please.
That cage probably saved a wrestler's life that night.
Yeah, probably so.
That crowd went ape shit batty when Lawler lost and got his head shaved.
Yeah.
And Tommy Rich had been hiding under the ring. The one thing that cage is there to prevent is outside interference. And Tommy's under the ring the whole damn show.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's my brother. He asked, he said, who was the first one? Did someone ever hide? And I didn't want to say, I want to hear what he had to say. He said, I think, and finally I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was Tommy Rich the first one, but I know a match that I'm going to on the podcast this week is going to be Tommy Rich was under the ring. That's the one if someone could have done it sooner, or earlier, I should say, but that was a hell of a good angle, man, to prevent anyone from getting in, and he's already in there and stayed in there all day, I guess, while they built let the fans in and built the cage and all that. So that's pretty fucking impressive, man.
Yeah.
Man. Say something about fried chicken, cold beer.
Exactly.
Someone say something about fired up.
Yeah. Somebody say something about pissing in a bottle under the ring.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Man. Shit.
Okay. What do you like next?
Well, you know what I'm going to go with next? Just for me, one of my favorite moments would be the first War Games.
Okay.
You got the double ring with the big steel cage that encloses 2 rings, and then as they're announcing, everybody that's coming out, Nikita Koloff comes out with Dusty and the Road Warriors, and the fucking crowd just went berserk. And then, it just continued to grow. And then it ended in an abortion. I don't know what happened at the end of that match, but everything was like so good that all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, it's over. What the fuck? Yeah. But everything up to that moment was great.
Right. Yeah, I remember seeing, everyone got juice in it too, right? JJ.
Yeah.
And that's another thing about the cage match, Jeremy. I don't want to see someone come out and not be bloody in a cage match.
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't care if it's the baby face or the heel or both, and a referee too, for that matter. Someone better, by God, bleed in a fucking cage match. You're not censoring this stuff, folks. You're in a cage and someone's getting bloody, and that match there was another one I went back and looked at. Was that War Games? We had mentioned it before on another list, and that's fine because I had to go back and look at it, and that was one of the things I took away from it was, one of the 2 things was, by God, everyone bled, but the finish, I was like, well, they bled because it was a clusterfuck, I guess. I don't know what the finish was, but nonetheless, by God, that match was over. The match beyond Great American Bash 87, I think is what the reference was here for War Games, the original one. So, yeah, and you could take any of those War Games probably, man. They was all pretty good, but that was the one that stands out. Like you said, I think, did Nikita, we talked about he come out the American headband on maybe or something?
I think maybe
huge pop,
did.
right?
But he came out because, Magnum had just been hurt.
Yeah.
And and they needed, they needed that next tier good guy. They needed Dusty to have a best friend. And they went to Nikita.
Yeah.
And that was just an incredible move. And, I don't know if younger people know what a badass Nikita Koloff was back in the day,
Yeah. Oh, he had that fucking look, man. Yep. He had that look. I wrestled him for a fundraiser, probably 89 or 90. So, man, I was like, it was in my hometown. It was, like I said, 89 or 90 for a football player, that student athlete. And, man, I was just like, oh my God, this, he just looked so fucking incredible, man, across that ring. And I thought, man, if he gives me that Russian sickle, I'm getting fucking decapitated,
Oh, yeah.
But luckily, when he shot me off for it, I held onto the ropes, and it went to like a 20-minute Broadway, as it was planned. Because I have people come up to me before and say, hey, man, I'll kick your ass. I'm like, what for? I don't even know you. And they said, because you beat my favorite wrestler. And I'm like, what the fuck you done? They said, you beat Nikita Koloff, and I was like in 6th grade and shit like that. Either grown men and still come up to me and they'll say, man, I saw it. And I'm like, God, how old am I? I'm kind of pulling a Cornette line there, like, how old am I, man? How long I've been in this business, Yep. But yeah, Nikita had that intimidating factor, and he was jacked. Jacked. That's about 89, 90, something like that. But back in 85, 86, 87, you had all them guys, the Road Warriors, Nikita. Fuck, them guys were jacked, man.
Yeah.
And Nikita, I was looking across that ring like, man.
See, okay.
Knows it'll work.
I always assumed, and I don't know, and I haven't actually heard anything that bears it out. I always assumed Nikita Koloff was the kind of dude that he worked pretty snug. And if he got that clothesline on you, I got a feeling your ass is going down due to gravity, not because of coordination.
Honestly,
yeah.
To this day, I've had people tell me, it's no lie. I ran to a corner and he threw a knee up and it hit me in a cheekbone. I thought it popped. We was at an old alumni gym here in town. We weren't at the Armory. We was using one of the school gyms, and it fucking echoed. It's where I used to play sports out when I was a kid. Seriously, I ran across the ring. He threw a high knee. His knee pad had slipped down off of his knee, and so the bone caught me on my cheekbone, and it fucking popped. I'm going to tell you that. But, again, this was a time when you respected a business enough. That was the thing. He wasn't going to throw the clothesline in that match, the Russian sickle, unless it was a finish.
Yeah.
And, of course, that wasn't going to be a part of finish. So, like I said, when he threatened to throw it, I actually held onto the ropes, and I have pictures of it somewhere, and I'm holding onto the ropes, and I put my head up, even though it's kind of a heelish move. I put my finger up to my head like, I'm smart. You're not going to get me on that, because he knew, and I knew, and I think the fans knew, if he does do that, I'm not going to recover from that. It's a finish. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so we didn't do it. We teased it. And like I said, we went to 20-minute Broadway for the cause, you know, and I appreciate that. But anyway, back on track, Jeremy. Let's shift gears here and get back to the cage matches, because fortunately I wasn't in a ring with Nikita in a cage when he's fucking jacked and he's trying to take my head off, man. Who do we want to go to next? Anyone you got in particular? Or you want me to pick one?
You know what? Let me cover one that I remember.
Okay.
And this is because, like, when I was young and had just started watching wrestling, and I was that age where, you know, my dad would throw me some money and I'd go down to the video store and rent shit, you know. And I got, I think it was the Great American Bash. And what stands out to me about that one is Dusty goes over Flair for the title in a cage.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And there is just something to be said for guys with bleach blonde hair when they start bleeding in a cage match and everything just goes pink, you know.
Yeah.
They came out of that. It looked like a horror movie in there. And I think that was just as I had discovered the NWA on TBS, I think. And so that was one that always stands out, because I think that was like one of the first real cage matches I had ever seen.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's cool. I think, for our pre-notes, I think that was the Great American Bash. Is that what you said?
I think so, yeah.
And now in 86, I think is when they started touring. So that's one of the cities, and Dusty won the title off Flair. Because Flair, did he not do 7? He done several different guys during that tour, and then Dusty won it. I had the date, but I forgot to fucking write it down. On one of those dates of the Bash, it was a traveling tour by that time, I think, right? They did like 7 or 8, 10 cities or something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
And, so 86, though, Flair and Rose and Dusty won the title. July of 86, I think it was, because they were summer shows like June and July, or maybe just in a month of July. I'm not really sure. But yeah, so Dusty, now, correct me if I'm wrong, I mentioned off the air, was that Dusty's second title reign or not? Did we talk about that?
You know what? I think that might have been his third. I think that might have been his third. I'd actually have to go back and check, but I think that
third,
might have been, yeah. Because I'm trying to think, because Dusty...
I would too. If you're out there listening, hey.
Yeah. Somebody let us know. Because Dusty...
I'm going to give us a cheap...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to give us a cheap plug. If you're on Twitter, follow Jeremy at the Geekish Cast. Follow me at Bobby Blaze 744, or hit our dual dual Twitter account, Bell to Bell Blaze. Hit us up with the hashtag BBBB and let us know. I think you're right. That's probably Dusty's third title reign. I'm sitting here pointing my finger like Big Dusty himself out my fucking computer, but I didn't fact check that. But I think you're right. But let us know, what you think would be some of your favorite cage matches as well, man, because this podcast podcast here. It could go on and on and on, with all the different cage matches out there. We're just touching the tip, we're going off memory. We got some facts written down and stuff, man. But, let us know. Hit us up out there on Twitter land. Let us know you're listening to us on the podcast here at the Bell to Bell, Bobby Blaze. We appreciate it very much.
Oh, absolutely.
So, just a cheap plug here for the Twitter accounts, Jeremy. That's all.
I'm trying to remember, Bobby. I think Dusty beat Harley Race once and then Flair twice.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
So, but I always think back to that match because it was a pretty big deal, and you got Dusty celebrating, all the good guys hit the ring, and it was a good match. I really liked it. That's one of my absolute favorites. Anything where Flair goes into a cage and gets his ass kicked, that was always something to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep with Flair then. How's that?
Yeah.
Flair and Kerry Von Erich with Michael Hayes as special referee for WCCW. Says here, Christmas Star Wars of '82. And basically Hayes decked Flair. Kerry refused to win the cheap way, and that's when they go, and Hayes, when he leaves the ring, and as Kerry's getting ready to get out, I guess, that's when Gordy comes out and slams his head in the I remember that, seeing it played back. I didn't see it, back in '82. I mean, I probably saw the magazines and stuff.
Yeah.
And I may even thought it was later because I'm sure they played it again later on ESPN back in the day. And of course, Flair won it. And of course, that started not the whole start of it, but it was a good setup for the feud between the Von Erichs and the Freebirds and stuff,
Yeah.
So that match there, and you had Flair with Dusty earlier, so I thought I'd just kind of keep it with the same. But yeah, Flair, and I don't even know how good the match was, to be honest with you. I just remember that finish because I remember Kerry getting his head crashed in by Gordy, because Gordy is always one of my favorites. So.
Well, that is one of those stories. The match wasn't as important as the finish.
There you go.
That was
like the other one we mentioned.
yeah, exactly. that was one where. You know what? I don't remember anything about the match ever.
Yeah,
I've seen it, but you know what I remember? I remember that ending every time.
And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be, man.
Yeah, was such a missed opportunity. If Kerry Von Erich just had a few less problems, he could have been a great NWA champion.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so. He had a great body.
Yeah.
Wasn't the greatest interview, but hell, he had that body, and he was pretty damn good. He's a hell of a good athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And his work rate was, he got over. And hell, they could have. Anyway, that's another whole story.
Yeah,
apparently.
it really
got
is.
a fucking series on Viceland about it that's going around right now. It's pretty damn good.
You know what? I was hanging out at the bar yesterday afternoon, where I spend my Saturdays, and a buddy of mine who's a medical salesman. We were sitting there talking, and he goes, "Hey, have you watched any of these 30 on 30s?" I said, "I haven't seen it yet." I go, "But there's a Flair one I want to see." He goes, "You know about this family, the Von Erichs?" Do I know about the fucking Von Erichs? As a matter of fact, we were talking for a minute. I was like, Kevin Von Erich actually wrote to my broadcast partner after we talked quite a bit about them on the show. So, I mean, we definitely know the Von Erichs. So, again, thank you to Kevin Von Erich for indulging us. Yeah, that was an amazing time. I'm always going to be a little jealous because here I am, the big Von Erich fan, and he writes to you.
It's called getting over, kid.
I know, but that's how you and I end up in a steel cage match. But I just thought that was funny because, out of anybody to ask if they've heard of the Von Erichs, I am definitely the one because I'll be like, oh yeah, let me tell you all about them.
That's right. I know that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's that.
Yep.
So let me shift gears here. You got one you want to throw out? Because I'm going to shift gears on one of these on you.
You know what? No, you go ahead.
I'm going to throw this out at you because I do remember this around the same time period when Snuka, just 80s, of course, folks.
Mm-hmm.
If you just tuning in, get the 80s here. Snuka does the top of the cage splash onto the big dive onto Don Morocco. And that was the big deal. Morocco took it, and, man, it's just a big fucking bump. And I had forgotten the finish, and I had to double check on this because I think it was, within a couple weeks or so, if you followed the program back in, and we just had started getting the WWF back then or that time period on a regular basis around here. And that's when Snuka went to the top on Backlund in a cage. And I just tied that together for a time frame. But so as many people probably know by now, I'm not, giving anything away. I guess when at one point when Jimmy Superfly Snuka went up to the top of the cage, it inspired a young Mick Foley to become a professional wrestler. That story's, in his book and been told time and time again. But the dive on Backlund also set up the deal where Snuka turned face because he didn't actually hit Backlund with it. He missed it. And then, of course, they did the deal on TV where, I think the next week Ray Stevens beat the piss out of Snuka, made fun of him or something. I don't know what the whole deal. And it helped turn Snuka. That ended up being a pretty big deal because, Snuka turned babyface up. But those two jumps, the leaps, if you will, from the top of the cage, the Superfly splash, way back in the day, that was a legitimate big-ass cage, too. And they said, 15, 20 feet up there, the Superfly flew, Superfly fly, as it be. But that I remember those standing out. I don't even know the exact year on that, 82, 83, maybe somewhere in that time period. But man, to see someone get up on top of that fucking cage and also barefooted and jump, man, I don't know. Nowadays, people might say, well, that's not all that spectacular what they do nowadays. Well, I don't give a fuck how spectacular you do something. That there was pretty fucking spectacular. I'll say that when Snuka got up on that cage and dove off onto Morocco and hit him and then missed Backlund a week or two later. So that's a big ass bump to take either way, whether you hit the guy or whether you missed it. That stood out. And again, it goes to, Jeremy, what you just said about the last one. I probably couldn't tell you too many things that happened in either one of those matches, but what I do remember is the finish.
Yep.
So anyway, that's my rant on that.
No, that's a good one. I mean, yeah, because if we hadn't at least mentioned Superfly in conjunction with the Cage episode,
yeah,
we would be shirking our duties as pro wrestling opinion people.
Yeah,
that is actually a big deal. That that jump off the top of the cage, that was before that shit was a daily occurrence. It was before Mick Foley or any of those guys had been thrown off the Hell in a Cell cage.
Yes.
Yeah, so
that's a good one to go to right there, man.
Yeah.
What was that? I think it was like 98 when he went through there. When Mick Foley, Mankind or whatever, versus The Undertaker.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a guy we referenced standing there as a fan watching Snuka, and then whatever, another 15, 20 years later, there he is on a fucking Hell in a Cell, top of a cage, and there's two of them where he's wrestling The Undertaker. One of them where he goes through the damn cage, and the other one where he goes outside the cage through the damn table, man. Mm-hmm. But like you said, nowadays, sadly, some things just kind of like you said, kind of a daily occurrence in the wrestling business nowadays. And I don't know if you know, that's hell. I liked it when I saw something like when Mankind did go through the fucking cage. You know what I'm saying? You look, and I heard him tell the story on a podcast, and he actually puts over Undertaker. He's sitting there, I think it's Stone Cold's podcast, maybe a year or two ago. They're putting him over for taking that crazy ass bump or whatever and going through that cage. And he says, yeah, but you know what? He said, watch the match closely and you'll see Undertaker drop from the top of the cage into the cell or into the mat with me. And he does that on a sprained ankle. He said, so he's putting Undertaker on what a fucking tough athlete he was.
Yeah.
Out there working on a broken, not broken, but twisted ankle, whatever, and dropped himself from the top of the cell to come down and finish the match or whatever. But yeah, stuff like that, man, them guys just, I don't know, you put your body in a damn cage match, you're going through some suffering. Like you said, that raking the fence, man, that mm-hmm. move there, you're always waiting for that in one of those cage matches, excuse me. But yeah, man, that's some good stuff. I don't even know where you want to go to next. We're just talking about cage matches, folks.
Well, you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's stick with Hell in a Cell because another one. I mean, of course, the Undertaker's involved, but the Undertaker really just beating the holy piss out of Shawn Michaels in that Hell in a Cell match. That was something as well. I believe that got match of the year, whatever year that was.
Oh man, I think I know. We had some notes on it, if I'm not mistaken. I did. I had some somewhere.
I think.
97, Bad Blood, Hell in a Cell, Bad Blood 97, Wrestling Observer's Match of the Year for the very first Hell in a Cell match. That's coming from Texas Notes there.
Mm-hmm.
You're correct. And also, he has in these notes, Kane debuts, ripping off the cage door, attacking Taker to give Michaels the impossible win. 5 stars is what he's got written down here. So, hell yeah, man. once again, what do you remember? The finish.
Yep, that's what it comes down to.
And a pretty boy getting his face mauled in a cage.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's
a good one, man.
That is. Bobby, we got about 5 minutes here.
Yeah, I know. Do you want to turn this into a 2-piece episode, or you want to just wrap it up? How do you want to do this?
Well, let's talk about this one real quick. And before we do that, let me just say, guys, to help us keep the show going, I'm going to make a request that you use, our affiliate links, but one I'm going to tell you to do just for you is we've got a offer for you to try Amazon Prime free for 30 days. And Bobby, you've heard the news that Amazon's going to 1-day shipping pretty soon with Prime, right?
Oh, no, I did not.
Yeah, they're going to 1-day shipping.
Awesome.
And you can find our link to them by going to tinyurl.com/bb-try-prime.
Right on.
Give it a look. There's lots of great TV shows. There's the shipping. There's, their music program their basic music program is included with that. I of course do Amazon Music, which is like $15 a month, but you have access to like 70 billion songs. It's well worth the time. Another thing is, before we get too far in here, I want to remind you guys, our graphics guy Tex down in the basement there, down in the boiler room, is also running our YouTube page, where he cuts up and puts our comments into context with, historical things and other footage. And you can find that by going to tinyurl.com/bbbb-video. So go give that a look. And
absolutely.
I want to get those two out there before we wrap. What I do want to talk about real quick, I want to talk about, Bruiser Brody versus Lex Luger in a cage.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you brought that one up. Yeah. That one there, I thought, well, if we do a top 10, that one may make the 10 as a top 10, just kind of as a rib on us, I guess, if anything. But yeah, Brody and Lex Luger, I guess it's in Florida, Championship Wrestling Florida. Fonzie's the referee. Luger goes in the ring, inside a steel cage with fucking Bruiser Brody, and Brody starts no-selling everything. Just no-selling everything. I watched this as recently as maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Again, it's one of them ones on YouTube. Check it out. But, Brody just no-sells the shit out of it to the point to where Luger just gets up and he climbs out of the ring. There we go, back to what we talked about. You don't want to win a match.
So according to WWF rules, Luger won.
Yes, exactly. So, but yeah, Luger just, he's going to get the shit beat out one way or the other. And he just goes over, climbs out of the ring, and goes back to the locker room, man. And that match is over. But Brody just no-sells the hell out of it. And like I said, Luger's basically running for his life, like, what the fuck did I do wrong? And I think you mentioned that before on another podcast. Didn't you say that he has said, did I do something wrong out there? He said, no.
Yeah, there's two pieces of lore in this story.
Okay.
I don't know, again, I don't know how true they are, but they're a good story, so I'm going to stick with them. Right. One is that Fonzie tells Luger, like, go, get the fuck out. This guy's going to beat the holy piss out of you. Get out. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And the other one is that Luger's like, trying to figure out, like, what he did to piss Brody off. And he's like, what did I do wrong? And Brody's just like, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard both as well. So we'll stick with those two.
Yeah. Whether that's true or not, that's the best story going on those. But yeah, I mean, Bruiser, he had a face on him that I wouldn't want to see an angry expression on if he were coming towards me. At all.
No.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, let me ask you this, Jeremy. We'll wrap this thing up.
Sure.
We got our plugs in. Do you want to do this again for another episode? Because I think I don't know how many matches we spoke about this week with the cage matches, but we get this episode put up and put it out there and maybe do us part 2. What do you think?
You know what? I got another 45, 50 minutes in steel cage stuff to talk to me. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, man. Let's do that.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to figure out. We're not numbering this week. How do you feel that format has worked for us?
The top 10?
Yeah.
I think it's always great segues, and today we just didn't use the segues. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
We just kind of talked back and forth, and it went pretty smooth because when I wrote up my notes, I was under the impression of I was like, man, I don't know how you put these in order, because I went by memory first, and then I wrote down some notes. But then text, like I said, had mentioned some notes, and then I had talked to my brother and a couple other people that I run into here and there, and it's like one of those things where I'm like, I'm not so sure that this isn't just a category you talk about. You don't necessarily say, here's our number 10 and here's our number 1, and then a bunch of people in between saying, I can't believe you left this one out, or you got this one above that one, and this and that. So it's kind of eliminated this today. Rightfully so, I think, because I don't know how you put one of these matches above the other. Sure, some of them were 5-star matches. Some of them, as we mentioned, weren't even that good of a match, but you remember that finish that was a fucking 5-star, because people are still talking about it 35, 40 years later, you know. So yeah, I like our I like the way we format it. I like the top 10, but I like the way we're doing the cage matches. That's why I think we got enough material. Let's do an episode 2 of the greatest steel cage matches of all time.
All right, that works for me. Well, everybody, for myself, Professor Jeremy Vilmer, and my co-host, Bobby Blaze Smedley, it's been our pleasure to have you. It's been your pleasure to listen. Join us again next week when we do part 2 of our favorite cage matches in history. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. You can follow the show on Twitter at Bell to Bell Blaze. You can also follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyBlaze744 and Jeremy on Twitter at TheGeekishCast. To purchase one of Bobby's books, you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook1 to purchase Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots, Will Travel. And you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook2 to get I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler. To donate to the show's podcast hosting fees, you can visit GoFundMe.com/Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. Be sure to include a hyphen in every word in Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. If you follow and listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. Be sure to share the show with any wrestling fan you may know, and get on the Facebook page where you can keep up with Bell to Bell fans just like you. Again, thanks for listening to the program, and look for the show again next time.